happened?
I don't know. You know when you're rusty and you're not used to hitting the buttons, and then all of a sudden it's, but at least everybody got to see your face before the intro.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Caliber and Character. Yes, we are still alive. I am your host, Volstorm. With me, as always, is the lovely and vocally talented Dictionary Diva. Diva, how are we doing?
We're doing fabulous, Volstorm. How are you?
This is not ASMR.
Oh, sorry. Back off.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
hello, Texas Jen. How are you?
Hey, Texas Jen. It's
awesome.
Like opening a little present. You're like, oh,
That's
there's
right.
a comment. Sweet. Nice. I like
Cool, there's money in this envelope.
Yeah.
That's the best gift.
Yes.
The best gift is always cash.
It is a good gift. It is a good gift. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's been a minute, hasn't it?
I don't remember when we went live last. Because like you like to say, it's like a rave. We just pop up.
Well, that's how I prefer it.
Yeah.
For it to be like surprise.
Surprise!
Like brother Billy on the Gemstones.
Yeah.
Surprise! It's me.
I like that.
Oh my goodness. I'm just glad the weather has decided not to be too crazy the past couple of days.
Well, so there was a tornado that went through our area.
Yeah.
What day was it? Wednesday?
It was
Tuesday?
was Monday.
Monday? I don't, like I said, time.
It was like Sunday or Monday, and we had a lot of heavy winds and tree damage and stuff, but
Monday.
I didn't even realize it wasn't until I saw it on the news that it was actually registered as an F2.
I
was like, good Lord.
Yeah, like I was on appointment with something, and I'm making sure that the family's safe, because where I was at, it was bad. Like the winds were just straight, and it looked really bad. And so I'm making sure that everybody's safe. And Volstorm's like, yeah, nothing, we're fine, everything's fine. And then later that evening, after it cleared up, I was looking in the backyard, and I said, hey, our tulip poplar got topped.
Got topped. Yeah.
Got topped. And you're like, what? I didn't hear anything. Well, that means we have good insulation in the house, See,
that's what was so funny is I remember it was a Monday because I was out running errands, and remember standing out in the parking lot looking up at the skies going, yeah, I need to get home, because unfortunately we have a dog that goes absolutely nuts whenever it storms.
Love her little heart.
So headed back home just in time, and it was like Diva had just left for her appointment, so we just kind of missed each other. And sitting in the living room, looking out the back window, and I'm like, I'm watching these heavy winds and everything go through, and normally if like a tree broke or a large branch or something, you'd be able to hear it, and I didn't. So I just thought, okay, well, we've got through this fine, blah blah blah. And then it wasn't until Diva picked it out, or it brought it up to me, and I go out there and look, and the top part of the tree had fell onto into the backyard. So and of course I had to go out of town. So what's the first thing I did when I got back from out of town is clean up brush and debris and large branches, and I'm still not done with that.
No, because we've got 2 chainsaws, and I was going to use a smaller one, and Volstorm was going to use a bigger one, but the bar on the smaller one was bent.
It's bent.
Hey, checking convictions. Yay!
How are you?
So I wasn't
able.
You're
good as well.
Yeah, I hope you're good. Checking. So I wasn't able to use my chainsaw. All I got to do is drag brush.
Well, it was very much appreciated.
I know, but I really wanted to use a chainsaw.
I know. I was just glad at least Something was working.
Yeah, yeah, because we couldn't get the weed eater to work.
Mm-mm.
Probably need a new spark plug for that. The trimmer mowers broke down. We
Yep.
got some equipment issues, but
All,
that's for another
all kinds
story.
of round to it.
Lots around to it.
Chainsaw Diva.
Yes, yes, that's right.
That's about right.
Yeah, yeah.
If you could only see the grin on her face as she's cutting up brush.
I do enjoy it. I really do. I like outdoor work.
I just like playing with the chainsaw.
Yeah, and I was hoping to, cut it up into little, kindling so that we could use it for the fire pit, and that didn't happen. But that's okay. You know what working outside is really good for?
What's that?
Deep thought.
Oh, I was going to say relieving frustration, but yeah, deep thought.
Deep thought.
You're out there mowing, about a million things come through your head.
It does. It does. So, I dragged Volstorm into doing this rave today because yesterday morning,
Yeah, it was yesterday.
yeah, it was yesterday morning, got notification that one of our brethren, Brother Valhalla, was on a he was on a show. He was on a panel. And
It's
so I
because
was
he never went to sleep.
he didn't go to sleep. I don't know how people can function without sleep.
Him and Expert both, neither one of them went to sleep.
I don't know how. I have to have sleep. But anyway, so Brother Val was in this discussion with a group of people, and it was really interesting just to see the dynamic and then to ponder the concept of what they were talking about. And
Yeah.
I had typed in the chat of that conversation. I said that the concept of liberty has been corrupted and misconstrued now into the concept of equality. And then that got
Okay.
me thinking about liberty.
Well, let me ask you, what do you think liberty is?
I think liberty is the unalienable right that is God given.
Okay. Be
Yes.
a little more specific.
Well, that's such a profound statement. Like you can get really, really deep in it, or you can just look at it superficially and say, whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
But I really believe that the founding fathers had devoted a significant amount of time to that thought, that concept, and the depth of it. And because they were studiers of ancient Greek philosophies, all into the Roman philosophy. So if you look like at Epictetus, Plato, Socrates, all of them are discussing this thought that kind of centers around liberty, free will, consciousness, and what humanity is. And I
Let me
really believe the founding fathers had put a significant amount of time into considering this thought that is liberty.
well, let's take a little trip back.
Let's do it.
Thinking about the Revolutionary War and the founding fathers. All
Mm-hmm.
right. They had just been through a myriad of events in England,
Mm-hmm.
which included, you had, part of the reason they wanted to come to the New World was to be as far away from the government as possible,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because you had your religious freedoms being oppressed. It's like
Yes.
you could only worship this God,
Right.
right?
Right.
You of course there was a lack of land, which was probably the primary reason.
Yeah.
You had a government that was very oppressed and it was ruled by one person, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You also had governmental documents which were always changing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's like next thing you know, it's like, well, we have this set of rules set in stone, that the government can do this, this, and this, or you can do this, this, and this. And then by the next term, oh, it's changed. It's
Right.
completely different.
Right. Or the next reign of the next king.
Right. It,
Or if you were working as a worker on a lord's property, when that lord died, who may have been a very benevolent lord or baron over that piece of property, when their children came along, maybe those children were not near as benevolent. And
Right.
so you as a common man, a layperson, just a worker, you were subject to their whims.
Exactly. Exactly. Which, some would say in this day and age, if
Hmm.
you're living in an apartment, then you're subject to the slumlord, or some might even go so far as to say, well, I have to have this job. I'm working for this person, so I have to endure all that there is to endure.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but to kind of give my definition of liberty, keeping all the historical aspects in mind, my definition of liberty is the right to be able to do what you want to do without governmental interference, as long as it does not impede on someone else.
I would have to agree with that. I would have to agree with that.
And a lot of that a lot of that's free will.
Mm,
And, you don't have the right to mess with somebody else's land, with somebody else's property, with somebody else's life. You
right.
don't have the right to do that. But other than that, you should be able to make the choices that you want, as long as it's not impeding harm on someone else.
Right. Right. And I think that going back to 300 years ago and that mindset that the royals had, the landowners had for centuries, they'd been kind of indoctrinated. And I don't even know if indoctrinated is the appropriate word,
I think it is.
but there was this inherent belief that if you were born into a certain caste, a certain class system, a certain degree of privilege, that was your divine purpose.
Yeah, that it's that, and it's also that, well, if you're someone of wealth, if you're someone of power, that should carry on generationally.
Right.
Which
Right.
which
That still
it,
holds out true
right,
now.
right, which is kind of an indoctrination, in that, when you're doing it for generation after generation after generation, you just expect it of the family.
There becomes a degree of entitlement.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
And even I would say, not just money and power, but even intellectual status.
Right. Oh,
You
we're
know,
going to touch on that too.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um Going back to that thought of divine purpose. I feel like cuz you brought this up, Volstorm, you said that what was it that provoked revolution? So many revolutions during that time period. Like we had the French Revolution, we obviously
Hmm.
had our revolution.
I would
What
also throw in the golden age of piracy. It was a revolution. It was to
It
keep
was a
England out of the
revolution.
Caribbean.
It
Yeah.
was. It was.
I like what Checking says. Our founding fathers' ideals are far from what we have today. There is no longer for the people by the people. It is turned to division and control and power of government. And
Yes.
I would dare say the reason for the division is government wanting to take more and more power.
I would have to agree. I know that's not the purpose of this show today, but I think that a reason why so much of this idea and concept of liberty, why it's been eroded is because of the continual erosion of the belief of divine right and free will.
What do you mean?
I think you could look at, and I don't like speaking anecdotally, but my memory's crap, so I apologize. I can't remember specifics on things. But you see this continual erosion of removing the concept of God or a higher power from decision making on all levels of government.
Well, let me challenge you with this real
Yes.
quick. Is that is indoctrinating God into it true liberty?
Okay, and I'll have to argue your use of indoctrination. I think and I've been doing
Including
okay.
is including God into it true liberty?
I think that if you have embraced the concept of liberty, truly,
Right,
you cannot remove the concept that God is the one that gave you that. Or
right.
I I feel like the agnostic approach and the rational approach has eroded so much of believing in a higher power,
Mhm.
and then that belief in a higher power then dictates your behaviors.
Here's here's kind of my philosophy on it. The reason for the erosion of our freedoms has had more to do with comfort and not wanting to take responsibility more than anything else.
Well, I think that's human nature anyway.
Mhm.
That's my belief that human nature will gradually erode any system that is in place, no matter how rational,
Right.
well thought out, logical. Human nature, because it is inherently emotional and self driven, it will erode any system.
And it got to me it goes back to the old Benjamin Franklin quote, those who sacrifice liberty for security deserve neither.
Yeah, because people want to be comfortable. I mean,
Maybe in freedom, but anyway.
people want to be comfortable. But going back to that thought of liberty and free will, do you think that they're the same?
Yes, I do. I think liberty and free will are the same thing. Um, to me, in my mind, liberty comes with a little bit more responsibility than free will. Because to me, free will is almost like chaos.
I think, and that goes back to the devolution of human nature.
Right,
If you
right,
completely allow yourself to succumb to your free will,
right.
y yeah, it's chaos, and there's a complete y you're not y as a human, you're not much better than, um, any other critter that can do whatever it wants, but the thing about humans that differentiates us from animals or critters is just like animals are constrained by the natural order of things, humans have been able to transcend that natural order to such an extent that the expression of free will can be even more free, I
Yeah.
guess.
Let me touch on something you mentioned. When it comes to the concept of liberty,
Mhm.
how does modern statements like equality and equity fit into that?
I think it's a corruption. I truly think it's a distortion and corruption of the concept of liberty.
How?
And you're going to hear me rely a lot on the concept of God or a higher power, but I believe, and we can all accept this as fact, that not everyone is born with the same capability, in the same circumstance, in the same area, with the same opportunity. We can all agree on that. I feel like
Right.
that's fundamental.
Right.
But where it gets warped is the idea that because of how you were born, where you were born, and the opportunities you were born with, that makes you a victim. And because you're a victim, you deserve equality.
To me, that falls more into equity.
Right.
Equity being everybody has the same outcome regardless of circumstances.
Mm.
And that includes, this is why equity is kind of my pet peeve, is that no matter, it's the old story about how the dad comes in and talks to the daughter, and she says that she believes in that she believes that, everybody should have the equal outcome. He goes, okay, so let's say you take a test and you make an A on it. And then the person next to you takes a test and makes an F on it, but you both get C's.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
And then the
To me,
outcome.
that's what equity is.
Right.
It's
Right.
regardless of your effort, everybody's going to get the same outcome. And I grew up with the ideal of, well, you get out of it what you put into it.
I think my version of equity is a little different than yours. And that's because of the work that I had done in the education system,
Yeah.
dealing with 504s and IEPs, individual education plans, which
Huh.
were federally mandated and are federally mandated,
Mm-hmm.
which guarantee equal access to children to education at their
Right.
level, at what they need. Because,
That would be equality.
see, I feel like there's a little tea, little nuance there.
See, to me, equality is everybody has the same opportunity. You're granted the same opportunity. The outcome is up to you. Equity is, well, it doesn't matter about all the opportunity or work you put into it, blah, blah, blah. Your outcome is going to be the same no matter what. That's the difference.
Hmm. I think we'll have to agree to disagree slightly on that one. Slightly. Because I feel like there's a little nuance there that needs to be explored.
Like what?
Just going back to, so equality in an education system is you have the educator teaching. They're providing the material to everyone
Right.
equally. They're
Right.
providing it equally.
Right.
The ability of that student to receive that equal
Mm-hmm.
information, that information that's been broadly distributed,
Right.
that student may not have the same capability.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs to be delivered equally to their capacity.
Right. Okay. We're in agreement.
Okay. Well, then, I don't know. Maybe I don't disagree. I don't know.
Equity would be lowering the bar to the lowest common denominator so everybody's on the same level.
Yeah, and you could tell by my
That's
reaction,
equity.
that's a pet peeve of mine.
Yes.
That's a huge pet peeve of mine because there was a conversation that I had had once where,
Hi, White Rabbit.
"Hey, White Rabbit." There was a conversation in which I was told that, because of my privilege, that was the reason that my child was excelling. And I was like, "No. The reason my child is excelling is because of mindset, and
well,
mindset is critical."
well, it also had to do with the work that was done behind the scenes. It's not seen in the classroom.
Yeah, that's not seen in the classroom,
Right.
but it's mindset, the mindset of effort, the mindset that you have to work with the opportunities that you are given, and if the opportunities aren't there, you find them, you search for them, you
Hey, nerd.
"Hey, nerd, what's up?" So,
Sorry.
and that's where I think, to going back, let's go back. Let's roll back.
Let's roll back.
Um, what the conversation that Brother Valhalla was in was so focused on, well, it's not fair. It's not fair. And you know what? No, it ain't fair. But when you get lost and mired in this concept of equality, you're completely missing every opportunity that's available to you as an individual using your liberty and your free will.
I think where people lose their free will, it's not necessarily the concept of equality. it's more where, and this is maybe more where you're going, where people are like, it's not fair.
Mm.
It's not fair.
Mhm.
Well, the fair only comes around here in September. You know, like, how many times has your parents said, well, life's not fair.
Mm. Mhm.
So,
But it should be.
but it should be.
But
Well,
it
it's
should be. I
not.
remember that thought. Oh, I remember that thought.
And
But it should be.
it's up to you to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people get very, very mired into that mindset of
I just said that.
they get mired in the concept of I want what they have, but they ain't willing to work for it.
Right.
You got to
Exactly.
hustle.
So for the person that's not willing to work for it, should they still be given the same outcome as you?
I don't believe they should. Now,
No.
now should their liberty be taken away from them? No,
You
never.
have Look, you have the right to be as lazy as you want to. However, you also have the right to fail.
Exactly. And failure is the best motivator for growth, I believe, if
It
you
is.
want.
It is.
Yeah,
Failure is the greatest teacher.
it is the greatest teacher. But I think that drives me crazy that people get, and you'll see mountains and mountains and mountains of discussion on the unfairness of societal constructs or societal pressures or societal whatever. But you, and this is where I go back to God again, you have a divine right to express yourself and be yourself without impeding on others. That is your divine right. You have the free will to do so if you choose to do so. Yes, it will take work. I think that's the problem that a lot of people don't like.
Well, and is it the government's job to make it fair?
No.
Or is it up to you to figure it out?
So there's I think I've referenced this movie before. It's about Temple Grandin, who is
Yes.
autistic female, born in the 50s, I think, late 50s. Anyway, I
Maybe.
can't, like I said, I can't remember details. Um, but her mother, who was such a nurturer of this human that she was divinely put to take care of this child. I'm going to say divinely because she was. I believe that we come here where we are and we're just vessels. We just happen to be put, like our souls are placed in a body. Anyway, that's my whole other theory.
Yep. That's it, nerd.
Yes. Yeah, she's amazing. She's amazing. So her mother fought for her equity. Her mother fought for her equity. And because of that fight, I mean, Temple has this amazing story where her mind works in such a way where she can see systems and she can see how things flow and how things work. And she's
Right.
revolutionized the cattle processing industry. I know a lot of people are like, ew, well, we gotta eat. And why allow those animals to suffer in cruelty, which was her primary motivation. She saw the animals suffering and she wanted to reform that system so it was not so cruel. And it's an amazing story. Anyway, her mother fought for her equity.
Yeah, and eventually she got to the point to where she had the example from her mother where she advocated for herself, because a lot of the
Yeah.
thing, towards the end of the movie, she's really fighting for, no, you're wrong. Here's why. And here's this and this, and kind of forced them to implement it. And they were like, oh, wow, thanks to you, we're saving so much money on not
Mhm.
having to worry about lost
Mhm.
cattle.
Inefficiencies, yes. One distinction I think is important to make about this. A mother was fighting for the equity of her minor child, right? A
Mm,
minor child who had not yet fully developed, who had not yet fully come into this world. She
right.
was not a white knight. She was her guardian, her guide, and her advocate.
Right.
That's what that mother was. Now you'll see on another side, another spectrum, and it could be anything. It could be disability rights, it could be race, it could be access, it could be anything. But you'll see people who are white knights for adults who have not chosen to fight for themselves.
Yeah, it's the ones that are not in the situation at all that are probably the most dangerous because they have, they can tell you they understand. Oh, I work with these people. Oh, I do this, this, and this.
Mm-mm.
And both of us have seen this quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not in it. They
Yeah,
don't live it.
they don't
They
live
don't
it.
they don't understand it as well as they think they do. So when you have people who are independent thinkers who are like, no, this is the way I choose to do it, then they get all upset. And then you have, what we have where the woman dared us to say, well, you have privilege.
Oh yeah,
And I'm
it's your
like, you
privilege.
don't even live in this world.
It's your privilege. I'm like, bitch. Oh hell no. Good thing there's a computer screen between us.
Right. Right.
But
Jeez.
I truly believe the concept of liberty is a mindset. And I really believe that that concept has been corrupted and distorted into the idea of equality. Now, should there be revolutionaries who are saying, okay, this person's liberty has been trampled or infringed upon,
Right.
I will work with that person who has come to me, who no longer wants this liberty infringed. I
Hmm.
will work to advocate for them. That's a little different than being a white knight, though.
Is it?
I think it is. Like if the individual comes to someone who is familiar with the system and familiar with the process as it still stands in this country, where they can say, "Hey, my liberty has been infringed," and then it's up to a lawyer to make the case that yes, your liberty has been infringed. But I even think that that's been corrupted in the legal system now, where this idea of equity, no, not equity, equality has crept into.
Ah, you mentioned something about us having our own perspectives,
Yes,
and the law on its face is supposed to be impartial. That's why a lady justice is blind, right?
yes, yes.
But we've gotten to the point to where the personal biases, and I
Mm,
will I will dare say political biases,
yes.
have affected the rulings of some of these judges. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the lawyers, their job is to pull out all stops for their client. Period.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
their
can
job to advocate for
I
their
totally
client.
respect
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
But when law becomes an interpretation
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to this is what the law says,
Yeah.
then that is very much impeding on our liberty because
Right.
it's as opposed to saying, okay, here are the rules. You follow these rules. This is what happens if you don't follow these rules. Just
Mm-hmm.
flat out, right?
Yep.
Instead, it's like, well, because of this, and because I don't personally believe in this. That's not how I'm going to quote unquote interpret the law.
Right. Right. And I feel like overall, I made this point. This is just it's a slightly of a sidebar, but I had made this point to a friend of mine whose child had done something just
Awful. Yeah. Yeah. Uh huh.
and it, it's a situation of divorced parents and um the mother did not let the father know what their child had done. And so I'm talking with the father, and I was like, what a lot of parents don't understand is you are raising a future adult man or a future adult woman. That is your task. That is your job.
Right.
You are there to guide them to the light. I've always believed that, like from the very, very beginning of motherhood. My job is to guide this child to the light, to raise her to be self sufficient, independent. So, any roadblocks or stumbling blocks she may encounter in her life, I've prepared her for them as much as I can. That,
Right.
but a lot of parents don't have that concept of I'm raising a future adult human.
Well, I think we've kind of had the unique perspective of being of taking the approach of we're not always going to be here.
Mm-mm,
So
mm-mm.
you're kind of going to have to figure this stuff out.
And
And
we
it's
will,
better if you do it early
right,
while we're still here to be able to guide you as
right.
opposed to, you know, well, we're no longer here, figure it out.
Well, figure it out, kid. Good luck.
Up to you.
Good luck to you. But going back from that sidebar, back to the concept of what are children being taught now? And I don't feel like kids are even taught the concept of liberty anymore. Like in schools, 30, 30 years ago is probably the cutoff mark. Liberty was taught in school, the
Right.
concept of liberty and what the Revolutionary War was about. And I don't feel like, and heck, I know they don't study any Greek philosophy anymore. They just don't study it. Accurate, yes.
Let me hit up this one that I need. Left thinks they have a crystal ball. Not only do they think that they're right based on nothing, they think that they can read your mind.
Mhm,
I,
mhm.
I have to agree.
I think there's a big thing, and we were wanting to touch on it, going back to that concept of free will. There
Hmm.
are many, many, many vocal proponents of the concept that there is no such thing as free will.
The quote unquote intellectuals,
The intellectual elite.
the intellectual elite, and they're right up there with many of your politicians.
Mhm.
That instead of, you have free will, you have the right to live and die by it as you choose. They think that everybody else is a bunch of kindergartners and they need to constantly be told what to do, which is why you always hear about we need more laws. We need more laws. And then you look at the laws that are on the books and it's like, why aren't you following these? Because they cover this
Right,
subject.
it's right there. There's already a law for
It's right
this.
there. There's already a law.
Mm,
I go, because I'm a proponent of the Second Amendment.
mhm.
I go back to everybody saying we need background checks.
There
There
already
are
are.
background
There
checks.
already are
Anytime
background
you
checks.
purchase a firearm, there's a background check.
Yeah,
It's right there.
yeah.
You have no choice.
Yes. Yes.
What?
I'm sorry, I got distracted by the chat. I normally
No,
don't.
don't look at expert.
I won't
Don't.
look.
Don't.
He said something about canning, and I like the idea of canning because I like
Of
to look
course
at
he
those
does.
exhibits at the fair too.
And checking says the justice system is turned into a power and political gaining system rather than justice for all, more on the conviction than the
Yes,
truth. I have to agree.
have to
I have to
agree.
agree.
I have to agree because, well, I call it bending over dollars to pick up pennies,
Yeah.
and I feel like some people view a conviction rate as, well, I'm going to get the conviction no matter what, and they're totally bending over the law and liberty
But see,
and
here's the thing. Here's the thing. That's the lawyer's job. I don't have a problem with that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You can sit there and you can criticize, well, I can't believe so and so did this. So, I can't believe they brought this up in the case, blah, blah, blah. Their job is to win the case. I have no problem with that. My problem is with judges, the people that are in power that preside over the cases, when they start having a bias one way or the other and it really shows,
Mhm,
and therefore it
mhm.
affects the outcome.
Yeah, yeah. I would have to agree with that too.
And judges can even have a bias in affecting the jury as well. Ultimately, the
Yeah,
jury is who's making the decision, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
a judge can skew jury instructions. They can skew what's allowed into the case,
Mhm.
so on and so forth, that can skew as opposed to letting the jury see everything. Of course,
Yeah.
I know there's legal precedents on things that can be let in, things that can't be let in,
Well, I mean,
but that's not the point.
yeah. Yeah, that's not the point. I had a thought and it escaped me for a moment. Where'd it go? I got distracted. Imagine that.
Squirrel.
Squirrel. I have about a 41-minute attention span, and that's pushing it. That's pushing it. I think one of the interesting things is like, we were listening to the Broken Baker talk about their system in
Yes.
Denmark, their legal
Yes.
system, and I was like, that's really intriguing. But you have to have some form of legal system to maintain order. And I think that also has been corrupted. The maintaining of order, which is dictated by ruling elites as to how humans should behave, which then is a complete infringement on free will.
Right. And
And
eventually it does get to the point where, like in the 1700s, you had all the revolutions because people were tired of it. But
yeah,
I think people are too lazy now to really put up much of a fight.
I think, sadly, I don't think enough people are educated enough to be able to articulate an eloquent
Right.
argument.
Yeah, because they're focusing more on social issues as opposed
Yeah.
to civics.
Yeah. Well, you see how an argument or a discussion can devolve completely into yelling and talking over another one. In fact, I was bringing up the Robert's Rules of Order, and
Yeah.
I can completely understand how those were developed because you see, like the British system where they just throw it out at each other. They toss it out when they're making the sausage and the
Well,
legislation.
for crying out loud, I've heard this on podcast after podcast after podcast about how in the past, probably past 10 years at least, nobody can have a discussion.
No.
You can't have somebody on one side of the issue and somebody on another side of the issue actually have a discussion.
Yeah, they don't know how.
It turns into I'm better than you and here's why.
It's
And that
so
goes for both sides. Both
Yeah,
sides
it
do it.
does. It does. And what will animate a populace or a mob more than something that is emotionally triggering?
Mhm.
And these people have capitalized on it.
Yeah. Well,
The
that's
politicians and these elite, they have capitalized on the ability to create a knee-jerk emotional reaction amongst the mob.
mhm. And that's how you control the mob and how you can and this would be the devil's advocate. This is how you can take advantage of liberty
Mhm.
is I can persuade you all to think this way as opposed to having one intellectual mind just sit there in reverence over everything.
Right, right, and you can see how that's such a thin, thin line
Yep.
of I'm going to capitalize on your liberty or manipulate your liberty to have you programmed into a thought or a mindset so that
Right.
you react emotionally and in mob fashion so that there can be no creative discourse.
Exactly.
This is a good talk,
Yeah.
Volstorm.
I feel like we've beaten this horse to death.
Have we? I'm sure somebody could write a thesis on it
Oh,
if they
I'm
wanted
sure.
to. A
I'm sure.
book? I don't know. The
Oh my
concept of
goodness.
liberty.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Hail to the
Right?
chat as always. Love you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and especially for all those all the replay crew that hopefully you'll get a chance to see it.
That's right. I forgot to restream it on my channel. Oops.
That's right. More people for this channel.
That's right.
Thank you all very much. Hope you have a good Sunday, and we will see you later.